When Soviet authorities finally opened the city in January 1944, they found markets selling meat pies. The police knew what was in them. Everyone knew. But no one spoke. Because speaking meant admitting what a million people had become. What hunger does when it lasts 872 days. When it becomes policy. 1,500,000 people died. Not from bullets. From hunger. Organized, systematic, calculated hunger. The Nazi siege cut off all food on September 8, 1941. Stalin refused evacuation. Refused surrender. Refused to acknowledge the dying. For 2 years, 4 months, and 12 days, Leningrad became humanity's largest starvation experiment. Leningrad, summer 1941. Cultural capital of the Soviet Union. 3 million people. Museums, theaters, universities. The Hermitage. Tchaikovsky's birthplace. Families picnicked along the Neva River. Children attended ballet. Engineers worked in factories. Teachers prepared for autumn term. They had 1 month of normal life remaining. They didn't know it yet. September 8, 1941. German artillery surrounded the city. All roads cut. All railways destroyed. All supply lines severed. 3 million people. City food reserves enough for 30 days. Stalin's order from Moscow: Leningrad will defend itself. No evacuation. No retreat. No surrender. The trap was complete. Absolute. What happened next was documented in secret. NKVD reports. Police records. Hospital logs. All classified for 50 years. If you think you understand human nature, subscribe now. Because what you're about to hear will change that understanding permanently. This is how quickly civilization disappears when food runs out. October 1941. Ration cards introduced. Adults received 400 grams of bread daily. Children 300 grams. Office workers 200 grams. People grumbled but adjusted. They'd survived hardship before. The bread was mixed with sawdust to stretch supplies, but it was still bread. Still food. They believed relief would come. Any day now. November. Rations cut to 250 grams. Then 200. Then 125 grams, €1, the size of a deck of cards. The bread was now 50% sawdust, 10% cottonseed cake, 10% cellulose. People boiled leather belts for soup. Wallpaper paste for calories. Carpenter's glue. The cold reached -40 degrees. Heating fuel was gone. December. The first disappearances. A child sent to fetch water never returned. A grandmother who went to the bread line. A husband who left for work. Families reported them missing. Police took notes. But police were starving too. Officers began filing reports without investigating. Everyone knew. Everyone looked away. January 1942. The death rate reached 100,000 per month. Bodies lay in apartments for weeks, €1, families too weak to move them, and corpses provided warmth. State bakeries had armed guards. Not against Germans. Against starving citizens. Bread trucks required military escort. The enemy wasn't outside the city anymore. It was inside. The party elite never starved. Special stores for officials. Military rations. Restaurant for NKVD officers that served meat throughout the siege. Security personnel gained weight while guarding bread lines where people died waiting. The government knew. Documented it. Did nothing. Maintained the hierarchy even as the city died around them. February 1942. Black markets appeared. Meat pies. Sausages. Meat-filled dumplings. No one asked where the meat came from. Everyone knew. Police arrested 2,000 people for crimes against the state. The official term was unknown utilization of human meat. The arrests stopped. Too many to process. Too commonplace. March 1942. Orphanages reported children disappearing from their beds at night. Adults would trade bread rations for access to dying children. NKVD reports documented hunting of children. Parents stopped sending children outside. Schools closed. Not from bombing. From predation. The city had become a hunting ground. April 1942. Police formed Special Anti-Cannibalism Division. Not to stop it, to regulate it. They distinguished between corpse eating tolerated and murder for meat prosecuted. The state had created categories for cannibalism. Official policy. Written procedures. Forms to fill out. Bureaucracy adapting to hell with Soviet efficiency. Summer 1943. Ice melted on Lake Ladoga. Supply trucks could drive across. Rations increased to 400 grams. People smiled again. Gained weight. The black markets closed. Children played outside cautiously. Families buried the dead properly. For 3 months, humanity returned. Then winter came again. The second winter. Some survivors say it was worse. Winter 1943. Rations cut again. But this time, people knew. Knew what was coming. Knew what they'd have to do. Knew what they'd become. The second time was worse because the shock was gone. The moral resistance was gone. They'd crossed the line once. Crossing it again required no courage. Just acceptance. Party officials documented everything. Daily reports to Moscow. Mortality statistics. Cannibalism arrests. Bread production figures. Stalin read them. Filed them. Ordered silence. No foreign journalists allowed. No evacuation permitted. Letters from the city were censored. The world knew Leningrad was besieged. The world didn't know Leningrad was dying. Deliberately. January 27, 1944. Soviet army broke the siege. Wehrmacht retreated. The blockade ended. 872 days. Journalists entered the city. What they saw made them weep. What they were told to write was heroic resistance. What they actually saw was buried in classified files for 50 years. The state controlled the narrative. Of 3 million residents, 1.5 million died. 700,000 evacuated during brief openings. 800,000 remained. Those survivors never spoke about what they'd done. What they'd eaten. What they'd become. They married. Had children. Grew old. Carried the silence until death. Their children noticed. The weight. The shame. The permanent haunting. 1992 Soviet Union collapsed. Archives opened. Historians found the files. NKVD reports. Police records. Hospital documentation. The full truth. 2,000 cannibalism convictions. Estimated actual cases over 30,000. The world finally knew. Leningrad survivors watched the news. Still said nothing. Some truths are too heavy for words. Too permanent for forgiveness. The siege of Leningrad teaches us that civilization is not a permanent state. It's a daily choice. And when authorities remove that choice, when survival requires abandoning humanity, most people abandon humanity. Not because they're evil. Because they're human. And hunger, real hunger, is patient. Hunger waits. Hunger always wins. They survived the siege, but what survived inside them wasn't human anymore. This was not a story. This was documented history. Declassified in 1992. If you believe these truths must be told, subscribe. If this made you think about human nature differently, leave a comment. And remember, this happened within living memory. Some survivors are still alive today. Still silent. Still carrying what they had to become. History doesn't repeat, but human nature under pressure always reveals the same truth.